You're in the 06010. Focus. Fantasy Focus.
Hello and welcome to Fantasy Focus Football live from the 2025 NFL Draft here in Green Bay. Thank you so much to everybody that's here joining us for this live show. We're going to have a ton of fun, as we always do with these live shows, but this one feels a little extra special. Being here at Lambeau Field for the NFL Draft, it's going to be a ton of fun diving into a bunch of these rookie prospects. I think, Field, you're going to bring a couple of guys to the table. You've been doing a little bit of draft prep this year, right?
Yeah, started last week. It's been awesome.
Good for you.
But I feel pretty good. I think I'm ready for the next 3 days.
Nice. And Liz, obviously very excited. We're going to have a bunch of stuff that we're talking about today, but it's really great to have you as well. You've become a big part of our live show.
I appreciate it. I'm so happy to be back in the Midwest. The cheese curds here, even though I'm from Illinois, are still the best. And I say that
Oh, look at that.
bias.
Look at that. All right.
And to the crowd.
That's right. Well, Stephania, speaking of playing to the crowd, I feel like every time we talk about you, you are the one person that the crowd loves the most. So how are you doing here in Lambeau?
Well, I appreciate the weather. As most of you know, I'm from California originally, and I really appreciate you rolling out the red carpet with the sunshine and everything for me today. I'm now going to go home raving about the weather in Green Bay.
Absolutely. I mean, Mike, we had an experience a little earlier with the weather. We'll dive into that a little bit later on in the show. We got caught in some weather earlier today.
Sure did.
However, you are dressed to the nines. Black pants. You got the black bomber jacket. You got the nice shades.
Actually, I'm looking here, and I think one of us is wearing Packers green.
Oh
boy.
I got the shoes. I got the shirt. We're going to pretend this is Packers green, not Eagles green.
Yeah.
Not Eagles green? Yeah.
Isn't Daniel the colorblind one on the show?
Yes, I absolutely am. You know the great thing about being colorblind, though, Field, is that's a bad transition. There was no good transition there. I do want to say this, though. Out of all the things that we are excited about, very pumped to be able to be here to do this show with you guys, but one of the reasons why we're very excited about it is because we have a very special birthday today. Our good friend, Field Minister Yates, turns 39 years old today.
39?
He chose to be here. How old are you, 36?
38.
All right, 38 years old.
We all thought you were 39.
Did you?
Yeah.
You guys are dating me.
We're trying to
Honestly,
You know, this guy's got it right. Whoever made that graphic, you
Happy
get a raise.
18th birthday, Field Yates. That's right.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, man. How does it feel doing having your birthday here at the draft?
I mean, I truly, and I'm not saying this to sound like a mensch, like there's no week that I look forward to more during the year than the NFL draft. The cool thing about the draft is that all 32 teams have hope. Now, Packers fans are used to hope. You guys have had a great quarterback for like 40 straight years. You don't live the world that teams like, the Jaguars or the Saints or others often do, right? But this is the week where you say to yourself, if we do the things correctly this weekend, we could transform our franchise forever. And especially this year, where for the first time in the history of the NFL draft, every team has its own first-round pick. So I love it. I mean, to celebrate this week is cool enough for it to be my birthday. Some icing on the cake, and thank you all for those very kind words.
I was going to say,
Except for whoever said 39.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I'd like Field to teach all of us how to age backwards and
Right?
to get your hair to look better and more like Mel Kiper's as you get older.
Someone was asking me about that earlier today. I said I went to some river near my hotel. I just dip your hands in there for a little bit, give it a couple slicks back, and this is how it settles. Yeah.
This is what happens when you're too beautiful. It doesn't make a difference.
Geez. Look at you guys.
Also, I'm very excited. We do have actually real cake over there that we're going to be able to dive into a little bit later for your birthday. But that's not the only thing we're excited about. Also, very excited to be able to announce to all of you and those listening at home, the Ultimate Draft Weekend presented by Baha Mar is coming back here in 2025. Join us. August 21st through August 24th.
Oh, let's go.
ESPN Fantasy Football Ultimate Draft Weekend. We went to the Bahamas last year. I don't know if any of you saw any footage of that. We didn't have anything like really crazy happen. Do you guys have any big memories from that trip?
I don't remember anything about it.
No?
Tell you what, I had one of the best crepes I've ever had in my entire life down in the Bahamas.
That's what it was.
Do you guys remember when Field broke his arm?
Oh!
On his birthday.
Yeah, that happened.
Man.
I remember that. That was a
Actually, you
memory
got to
I
get the
had.
injury right. He dislocated his shoulder.
Look at
Thank
that.
you very
Full
much.
extension. We haven't seen this since.
Have you guys ever seen me move this well? I mean, thank you. Shout out to Chris Candy, Super Bowl champion Chris Candy, and of course, one of the three hosts of the great Unsportsmanlike radio show, 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern time, so 5 to 9 a.m. Green Bay time. I saw him earlier, and he was like, "Dude,
How much did he pay you to do that?
Yeah, what a company
one
man.
bit. You know why? Because he
cow.
was like, "I'm impressed with your physicality. Like, I might draft you by the end of this weekend." So when the former Super Bowl champ says that about you, I would say that your PT went pretty well.
We might need to verify that was actually.
Look at him. Is he's
making
nodding his head right
He
now.
knows. Visit bahamar.com/draft. That is Bahamar, BAHAMAR.com/draft. Very excited to be able to go back and hang out with our friends over at Baja Mar again. It was unbelievably
That was the
special
best.
last time, and it's
Speak for
very
yourself.
fun to do it this time. I'm so sorry.
Baja Mar is the best.
You still had a great time. You came back that day. You
Yeah.
powered through, and we had a great time. You were going to miss that beach trip. So.
Yeah, in case anybody is ever wondering, if for some reason you tear your labrum trying to tackle a dummy on the beach, it turns out like 4 or 5 margaritas within 2 hours makes you feel a lot better.
Absolutely helps.
So just just in case, and I'm not hoping that for you, but if it ever happens to you, I do have some good medical advice.
All right, let's dive into a couple of things we're going to talk about. Oh, we're getting
a replay.
now.
We're getting a
gosh.
replay in case we didn't get enough of
Really?
it last year. We're going to show it again so you can see the injured field. By the way, hallmark sign of when you dislocate your shoulder, grabbing your wrist.
Also, who was
keeping
that
it
guy
by
that
your
put
side.
his arm around field? Was like, hey, I'm your friend. Do you need help? I think that's...
Yeah, and then and then he
then
walks
Mike the whole
away.
time
You know
was
what
like,
Mike
hey,
said?
Mike-
Mike goes, do you need a Band-Aid?
No, but I was sitting with you holding your back on the chair when Stephania was thinking about popping it back in. And honestly, you would have been taking care of 2 people if you did that. Me sitting there, because that was not going to end well for me either. I was going down.
Let's talk about a couple of rookie prospects here in the Fantasy Market Watch. A couple of rookies we're going to dive into to decide are we bearish, holding on these players, or bullish on these prospects. Field, obviously, because you just started your draft prep this last week, we're going to give you Cam Ward as the layup. What can you tell us about Cam Ward and the Titans?
Are you allowed to be bearish on a prospect when you're in Green Bay? I feel like that would be bad karma, right?
You're right.
All right, just
Maybe
trying to
a
make sure I
package?
read the crowd here.
Yeah.
Cam Ward will be the #1 overall pick tomorrow night. Obviously, the Titans hold that pick. He had an unbelievable season this past year at Miami. Had an unbelievable journey. He was a 0-star recruit. He's a Houston kid who had a 0-star recruit system, 0-star recruiting profile. Ends up at Incarnate Word. I don't know how many times you guys have watched Incarnate Word in your college football viewing experiences. Went to 3 schools, finishes up at Miami. He has this incredible sort of razzle-dazzle nature to his game. He had 39 passing touchdowns this past year for Miami. Didn't run that much. You know, Miami was so busy throwing the football effectively, but when he did, he averaged over 9 yards per attempt last season when you take away the sacks that he took, because in college, for quarterbacks, they count sacks as negative rushing yards. That was the best of any player in this entire draft class. Now, obviously, quarterbacks tend to run for longer distances on a per-play basis than running backs, but from a fantasy perspective, there's a chance that once this thing gets going, and I think it's going to take some time for Cam Ward when you look at the surrounding pieces he has in Tennessee, that we could be talking about him not just as the best quarterback from this draft class, but clearly has the most upside of any of the quarterbacks for fantasy as well.
For 2025, would you say outside your top 12, outside your top 15? If he goes to the Titans, what are you thinking for fantasy?
I think probably somewhere in the low 20s would be where I'll end up with Cam
20s.
Ward, which, by the way, is a testament to we actually have some pretty good depth at quarterback right now, right? So we do have – I don't anticipate a Jaden Daniels from this class. Breaking news that we're not going to have one of the greatest rookie seasons ever. The exclusive content you only get here on Fantasy Focus. However, I do think that Cam has the best chance to have a fantasy-relevant season this year. He might remind me, and not that these guys are like totally stylistically similar, because they're not, but Drake May, where like with Drake last year, you saw the peaks, right? Like some of the games are like, geez, this guy's going to be an absolute star. He's just throwing to me and Daniel, and Mike is protecting him, so it's not going to be that good, that consistent. Cam will have some peak games. I'm just concerned about the consistency based off what Tennessee has around him.
Wait, I have a question for Field, because you did say that this draft season is a season of hope, and you know that I am always hopeful for one Chigo Okonkwo.
Yeah.
Do you think, given the connection that Cam Ward had with Elijah Arroyo at Miami, there could be some elevation at the tight end position, and we could have Okonkwo be a post-hype sleeper again?
I could see that. I think
Hype sleeper.
Post-hype,
Yeah,
hype
however many
sleeper.
times.
Yeah, I can see that. Chig would definitely have me intrigued. The only part about Chig that I'm a little concerned with is that recently, and this is like such a 2025 thing to happen, Cam Ward was streaming. He was playing Fortnite or something.
Sure.
And he was reacting to the comments, and somebody asked him about the best wide receivers in the NFL. Did you guys in the audience happen to hear who he voted for? This is actually
Number
really
one.
good. The 4 best receivers in the NFL, according to Cam Ward, which, say this about the guy, he's got great awareness. Number 1, Calvin Ridley.
Nailed it.
Number 2, Jamar Chase. Pretty good answer.
Yeah, it's tough.
Number 3, Justin Jefferson. Number 4, Treylon Burks, baby. Let's go. Wow. So maybe the post-hype needs to be going towards Treylon Burks as opposed to Chigo Okonkwo. But I'm more optimistic. I mean, it can't get any worse than last year. I'm not quite there,
How's
though.
that for optimism?
Can't get much
By the
worse
way,
than last year.
shout out to Liz for waiting like 5 minutes to get to Chigo Okonkwo. Like,
I know, right?
Great job. You know, that was a new record for you, I think.
He's my Jermichael Finley. You're welcome.
There you go. That's
This
it.
year.
Every year.
Oh,
breakout,
those were some
breakout
boosts.
coming.
That's not great. Honestly, though, Cam Ward went to 3 schools. Stephania, you went to 3 schools. So
I
obviously,
also went to
Miami.
the U.
you.
Right. So
Yeah,
Love
the
that.
difference
Feeling
between Stephania and like a few of these draft prospects who went to 3 schools is like Stephania did it because she was going into medicine, right?
Sure,
like
sure, a little different.
this is just college football in a nutshell. It's just like they transfer every 10 minutes.
Well,
I was going to say the transfer portal might come in handy for people trying to make it into medical school. I'm just saying.
There you go.
Yeah.
I still have 4 years of eligibility, so we'll see if maybe I have any football left in my bones. Mike, I want to ask you about Shedeur Sanders.
Oh, boy.
You and I were getting lunch earlier today. We saw that
Hold on, I got to stop you. This is the first time any ESPN platform has covered Shedeur Sanders, so make sure that you guys enjoy this. We've largely left him under the radar for the past 3 months, so you're welcome for getting the ball rolling here.
That's what Daniel was explaining. We first heard of him earlier today.
Yes.
It was the
I had
first
no
time
idea.
He popped up on our
Who is
network.
this man you speak of?
Yeah.
ESPN Bet's line went from 8.5 for his draft position, fell all the way to 21.5, Mike Clay. This is one of those things where when you're trying to figure out where a quarterback's going to go and he's not at the very top of the class, there's a lot of things that could happen. So just understanding we're not quite sure where Shedeur is going to go, how are you projecting him, at least in his first year for fantasy?
Yeah, it's going to be very tough for him to be fantasy relevant out of the gate. I mean, Cam Ward, we expect to go first overall. And honestly, I think Ward's supporting cast is kind of okay. They need like another wide receiver there, but the O-line is in decent shape. So he's pretty well positioned, and we're still talking about him as a guy that's probably going to be ranked quarterback 22 or something in our rankings. Sanders, we don't even know if he's going to start in week 1. Obviously, he's falling in the draft. I would say the positive here is that he could fall to a pretty good situation if he goes late in round 1 to a team like, say, Pittsburgh, for example, where a lot of people are mocking him right now. But the problem with Ward and Sanders is, unlike Jaden Daniels, they're not going to be major difference makers with their legs, I don't think. I mean, sometimes we're surprised. I don't know what you feel after watching them closely. They might be decent, but these days, if you're not adding a ton, especially as a rookie, it's going to be hard to be a quarterback 1.
I would argue, and somebody who's better historian of the game could correct me here, but it certainly feels like we're in the most athletic era of quarterbacks in the history of the league, right? So if you put Shedeur Sanders in the NFL 20 years ago, you'd be like, yeah, he's a pretty good athlete. Now I would say he's like maybe the 20th most athletic quarterback amongst projected starters for next year, and that might be high.
And that's the thing. It used to be, wow, this guy runs, so that puts him up there in the top 5 fantasy quarterback. There was just a handful of guys like that in fantasy. Now it's like, if you don't run, you're way off the radar. I mean, look at even someone like, Phillip Rivers at his peak was not a good fantasy starting quarterback. Kirk Cousins would put up all those yardage totals and still finish like QB 11. Aaron Rodgers down the stretch in his career as he got down the last couple of years wasn't running and fell off the fantasy radar. CJ Stroud, another guy like that.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it
good examples.
matters. It's different from NFL versus fantasy. Actually, I should mention Jordan Love because same thing. He didn't run last year because he wasn't fully healthy, and he played great. He was one of the better quarterbacks in the league last season, efficiency-wise, but terrible in fantasy after the first month because he was just not running the ball at all. It's a huge part of our analysis of quarterbacks in this game.
All right, then let's talk about something a little bit more fun for fantasy, because I feel like there's one guy that we've all been talking about, everyone's been pumped about, Ashton Jeanty, obviously, Stephania Bell, the running back that is the running back in this draft class. If you had to project anything for him heading into fantasy in 2025, how are you looking at what he's going to be?
Well, I am lucky because I'm the one who gets to talk about somebody who's going to have immediate relevance in fantasy football, and that is Ashton Jeanty. A thing I like about him is he has this great contact balance. He can get yards after contact, 1,733 yards after contact, led the FBS. Forced 126 missed tackles, led the FBS, and that's a good thing. Not only can you get hit and stay on your feet, you can also avoid getting taken down, and that is what we're looking for. Excellent pass catcher as well. He can run inside, he can run outside, he can basically do it all over the field. That's what you're looking for in a running back. And as everybody knows that I have taken this stance, I'm a big fan of running backs beyond their first contract, and you love seeing a running back who's going to get action immediately when they land with a team. Where will he land? That's the big question. I put it to you, Field. I love hearing the chatter about the Raiders because I personally would love to see him go to the Raiders, but what do you think about that?
Sounds like the range starts at 5 for Ashton Jeanty, which would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. I would consider that probably a misallocation of resources, but he's such a special player in this draft. It doesn't necessarily have as many blue chip prospects compared to where we were last year, where we were just totally soaked with these great for fantasy too, but great football players. So I think the range is probably as high as 5, as low as 10, which would be the Chicago Bears. It feels like the nuclear option for fantasy purposes with Ashton Jeanty would be the Bears at number 10. But no matter where he ends up, he's going to probably conservatively be RB10 going into drafts next year.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Do you think we're going to be drafting him in the first round?
I think it's going
of
to be
fantasy
like
drafts.
Right on that periphery.
Yeah, I agree.
Right
I
at
think
the
he's going to be
turn,
right at
maybe.
that
We were
1-2
talking about
turn.
that earlier today.
Yeah,
The first round
exactly.
looks
So
like.
be prepared for that. He's going to be a popular pick in the first round.
I also don't mean to have grabbed my phone, and I wouldn't have done it otherwise, but Mel Kiper Jr., for those that don't know, uses a cell phone 4 days of the year. 4. It's in a drawer.
True.
It's a purple phone, a purple iPhone that sits in a drawer for 362 or 361 days a year. He just called me from his cell phone, so I can confirm that it's back in operation.
That's kind of a humble brag,
Like,
but
that's
not
a
really.
baby flex, right?
Yeah, I know.
It's probably,
Mel Kiper's
you know what it
calling
probably
me.
is? Mel's probably responding to the 90 voicemails I've left him since last NFL draft.
I think the most famous person in my phone is probably Field Yates.
Yes, very clearly.
God,
Mine
we
is
gotta-
Stephania Bell, but if yours is Field, that's fine. Mike Lay, no big
I don't. She has me blocked, so I
deal.
don't know.
That's why. That makes sense. That makes sense.
How'd you find out?
Liz, I want to ask you about a running back as well. Omarion Hampton, obviously a guy that has seems like a very good path here to being able to have some
Yeah.
fantasy relevance in 2025. What do you like about his game?
I am bullish on Hampton. He's an aggressive downhill runner, reliable pass catcher. By no means a complete receiver, but certainly the every down potential is there for him. Also incredible at the goal line. The first running back in UNC history to manage 15 touchdowns in consecutive seasons. We love all of that for fantasy. Mel Kiper Jr. speaking of, he must have felt the vibes as I was about to say them. Recently mocked him to Denver at 20th overall. I love that landing spot for Hampton, especially not only in Sean Payton's system, but with Javonte Williams and his 200-ish touches now in Dallas. I think that were he to land there, were Mel to be right, and let's be honest, he often is, then Hampton could post top 15 fantasy numbers at the position.
I mean, that would be incredible. Top 15 would be legit. Mike, just from a right now, I realize you don't know where he's going to go. Do you already have like rookie projections for these players?
I don't. Just Cam Ward. He's already in the projections because we know he's going first overall. But we'll have those live. We're going to be doing
Our reactions tomorrow.
We'll be doing a reaction live article. Matt Bowen, you, and myself. So the projections will come up live. But yeah, I mean, how many 220-pound backs do we know that can catch the ball so well? The downhill runners and a potentially great offense like that with Sean Payton.
Also, big guy, 92nd percentile speed score, 93rd percentile burst, great lower body burst, and dexterity.
Yeah, he's gonna project pretty well, assuming he lands on a team like that where he
Can I
doesn't
just say
have.
lower body dexterity is nothing I ever thought I would say in a
I had
professional
to think
setting.
about what you meant there for a second.
I just thought that's your life, Liz. You talk about men's lower body dexterity for a living. It's a great job.
Honestly,
life
sounds
chose
like
you.
you've done well.
Somebody has to do
This
it.
life did choose
So
you.
someone's got to do it. That's right.
You want me to ask you about Travis Hunter, Daniel?
Well, honestly, Field, people know me as the draft beatnik on this show, which I got the hardest prospect, obviously, in Travis Hunter. They were like, who's most likely to know what it's like to go both ways? And I played both offense and defense on my college basketball
Daniel,
team.
stop talking.
Hold on now. We're live on the ESPN app right now.
I played offense and defense on the basketball team, so I totally understand what it takes to have the stamina to be able to do that. I have no freaking idea what to think about Travis Hunter. Anyone that tells you that they know what's going on, I think is totally lying. Field, unless you tell me otherwise, I know that he wants to play both offense and defense. I know that he is elite on the offensive side of the football. His last year at college, 98 receptions, over 1,250 yards, 16 total touchdowns. The dude is a stud. But if he's going to be spending time on the defensive side of the ball, how much is that going to take away from him being on the offensive side to help us in fantasy? And that's one of those things that's really difficult to be able to figure out. Field, have you gotten any murmurs, understanding that it depends on where he goes, as to how much you think he's going to play on one side versus the other?
Well, the good news is that we know the range for Travis Hunter. It's probably just 2, but it's 2 to 3, right? It's either the Browns or the Giants. And Andrew Berry, the GM from the Browns, has been as transparent about Travis Hunter as anybody talking about him in the entire pre-draft process, probably because he knows Cam Ward is going 1, so there's really no harm in talking about Travis Hunter. And he has basically said, we view him as a wide receiver first. Now, I will just say this. I went to the Colorado Pro Day a few weeks ago, and there was every team was represented, and there were so many people there. And in asking kind of everybody the same few questions, how do you grade Shedeur? Where's Travis Hunter going to go? And then what do you think about how he'll be utilized? Most people seem to land on this. Each building has its feel about which side I think he's a little bit better at. But each building is kind of going in with the mindset of, I think we're going to play him more on wide receiver, but if this guy's in the building and by, the third week of training camp has, shut down our top receiver in every single practice, then maybe he plays a little bit more cornerback. My expectation, though, is when he goes to Cleveland, he will probably play more wide receiver than he will corner, in part because of the personnel that Cleveland already has in place at that spot.
So what's your feel from a fantasy perspective over the next, say, 5 years? Is this a guy that we're talking about every week as a
starter.
Flex option?
But
is he like a flex, though, because he doesn't have that ceiling of other guys?
I think at some point the decision will be made a little bit more clearly for him. And there are 3 avenues. One is full-time corner, one is full-time wide receiver, and third is the current one, which is both, right? You can throw full-time corner out the window. Just look at the pay structure right now. Jamar Chase makes $40.25 million a year. Top-paid corners, $10+ million per year.
But feel the longevity is different at DB. You can play longer.
Maybe versus wide receiver.
35 years old, still out there.
There's not many of them.
35-year-old old? What the hell, guys?
Wow.
What? Oh,
Wow,
wait, you're not
Liz.
39, are you?
No, he's 38. Stop it. No, honestly, though, this is one of those things that because I think this is the big question, right? His ceiling is just inherently lower than some of these other stud wide receivers because
That's my
he's just
worry.
going to spend less time on the offensive side of the ball.
But I think it could also, we could be talking about him a year from now, and we're like, by the end of the year, Cleveland realized he's just too good on offense, and this guy's such a freakish talent that wide receiver 8 next year. So it's hard to I feel much. We talk about this a lot during the preseason, kind of what your anticipation is for the player in the first month of the year versus the full season of the year. My first month of the year will be guarded optimism. And then I don't know which path it will go down, at the fork in the road.
But we'll know. At that point, by the time that we are drafting our fantasy teams, also, he's a perfect example of why you are not going to draft your fantasy team until as late as you possibly can, because I want as much information on Travis Hunter before I draft. So, wait as long as you can to have hold your draft.
Preferably at Bahamar.
Yes, thank you.
Liz, professional right here.
Okay, I have to bring a little seriousness to the Travis Hunter discussion because we talked about this a little bit last week. My concern, if he does play both ways, is exposure to injury, because the more you're on the field, the more the injury exposure is. Every time you step on the field, it's an injury exposure. And you talk about fatigue, you talk about having that many snaps in the NFL. It's a whole different ballgame than playing at college level. That raises the concern level for me for him. He did take a lot of big hits. You saw what happened to him at Colorado. He's a fantastic athlete, incredible. I know he wants to play both ways. I don't know. Teams, again, it's not a talent question always, and it's not whether he can learn both the offense and defense, although I have heard that some coaches were expressing that concern as well. It takes a lot to learn an entire playbook on an NFL offense and defense. But also, they're looking at it from a financial calculation standpoint. If this is an investment that they make, how concerned are they about setting him up potentially for injury playing that much?
Sure. Makes a ton of sense. It does not feel like it's going to be a surprise, like you had said, Field Yates, because it seems like 2 or 3 is going to be in the cards at the very minimum for Travis Hunter.
That won't be a surprise, but we do now have a surprise for you as we move forward to the next portion of the program. And these guys on stage don't even know what we're going to do tonight. You guys ready for this? All right, thank you. We just talked about what a blast it was at Bahamar last year. Total blast. And we can already tell that this is a great crowd here tonight. So guess what? I'm putting on my Jordan Love hat for a second, calling the audible, tapping the helmet, time to call an audible.
What's happening?
How about we give away one trip with one of you here in Green Bay tonight with us?
Shut up.
To Bahamar this
Are you
August.
serious?
Oh, my God.
To attend the ESPN Fantasy Football Weekend.
Feels
wants
giving
to go
away
to the Bahamas?
his birthday.
I love it.
So to say thank you for coming out to the live podcast, we're going to give one lucky winner the opportunity to bring their fantasy league to Bahamar for the Bahamar and ESPN Fantasy Football Weekend. That sound good to you all?
Holy cow. What a birthday surprise, Field.
And we are going to find out who that lucky person is just before we do the mailbag.
Oh, later in the show.
Patience
Okay,
is a
stick
virtue.
around.
I've got a 3 and a 1-year-old. We talk about patience all the time at the Yates household. Very unsuccessfully, but patience. Just a few more minutes.
Oh,
You,
now
you
I'm
guys,
pumped.
you guys said I'm not allowed back next year, so am I eligible to win this and then I could come?
That's
okay
a great
for me,
question.
dog.
It's a good question.
I've already been replaced with Liz, so now all right.
Honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate you.
What was that?
Someone
Don't
said
worry,
I was
Mike.
pretty. Don't worry about it.
All right, let's do a new segment. This one's going to be called Pack Yo Bags. Obviously trying to play to the crowd here, looking at wide receivers that are moving to new destinations. Is this going to be a first-class fantasy flight and an upgrade, or will they miss their connection? Liz Loza, I'm going to start with you. Former Green Bay Packer Davante Adams going from the Jets to the Los Angeles Rams. How do you feel about this?
Well, as this crowd can attest, Davante Adams has been flying first class since 2016.
He's
so
unreal.
I'm not sure that the move from certainly New York to LA is going to be an upgrade unless you're factoring in the weather and the people. However, I do think he is going to maintain his gold status, let's say. You know, from week 7 to the end of the year, sharing the field with Garrett Wilson, he averaged about 18 fantasy points per week. That was a wide receiver 9 in fantasy points per week. That's also about what he averaged in with the Raiders in 2022 and 2023, and what I think we can expect from him in Los Angeles. Catching passes from Matt Stafford, working opposite Puka Nacua, and in a great system with Sean McVay calling the plays. So I think I would put him on the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 bubble for fantasy purposes.
Agreed. A quick nugget, too. If you're worried about Puka being there and potentially Adams being the number 2, and that's going to hurt his fantasy stock, check this out. Last year, the Rams led the NFL in wide receiver targets. In 2023, the Rams led the NFL in wide receiver targets. They're number 1 in that category going back 5-6 years during the, actually, 5 years now, Stafford and McVay together. That offense is built around getting your star players to football. So I'm not worried about that at all, and I would not be surprised if they have 2 top 10 fantasy receivers.
Yeah, tough to call it a first-class upgrade, like you said, Liz, because we're not upgrading Davante Adams, but I think maintaining his first-class status is where
Aisle seat, first class.
Yeah. Oh, you're an aisle seat rather than a window seat?
I'm always an aisle seat.
Are you guys aisle seat or window seat people?
No, I like
all that
it.
leg
You look
room.
at the view. That's
I hear more
right.
windows out there. All right, Field Yates, I want to ask you, DK Metcalf left Seattle, ends up going to the Pittsburgh Steelers with who the heck knows throwing him the football. How do you feel about DK Metcalf?
Well, sort of a funny story, because as of right now, it looks like as of right the second, the Steelers starting quarterback would be Mason Rudolph. I only bring that up because somebody told me earlier today, they go, you look like an uglier version of Mason Rudolph. I was like, thank you. Because of the hair.
That was me, by the way.
It's okay. I took it, take it in stride, right? You know, we're professionals here. It's a downgrade right now is what it is. There's so much uncertainty surrounding this decision right now. I just don't know how you can say that DK Metcalf is in for better days after going from Geno Smith, who was I believe, a very, very good quarterback at the very least, to all of a sudden, who? Here's the deal. I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, right? I don't need to explain the mercurial nature of Aaron Rodgers to you guys, though. I think it's going to be Aaron, but Aaron could decide tomorrow he's going to, I don't know what. Like, he could decide he's going to play in the XFL, the UFL. He could decide he's going to retire. He could decide he's going to start a fantasy football podcast. It's all in play with Aaron. So if it's Aaron, I would say it's at best net neutral, because at best, and I think it's probably a downgrade. Because who's he going to play for? Arthur Smith.
Yep.
And Arthur Smith, as we know, is as determined to pound the air out of the football everywhere he goes, right? Now, they don't have a running back either, which they could probably address tomorrow night at pick number 21. But, yes, I will go with a downgrade here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. By the way, you guys love when I just bring trivia questions to the table, right?
Oh, it's my favorite.
You guys love when I do that.
I don't know. That or a dad joke.
No, trivia question.
All right, trivia question.
Bad joke off the top of my head, so I'm going to go with the DK Metcalf trivia. How many seasons has he finished as a top 20 scoring fantasy receiver?
19.
I will say 7.
DK Metcalf?
Yes.
0.
There you go.
4.
1. Stephania wins.
Closest
But that's hard to
without going
believe,
over
right?
Price
We
is
kind of
Right
draft him
rules.
15th, 12th, 17th. He's finished top 20 one time so far in his career. Now he's going, all the things Field just laid out. I have concerns as well. It's just a role he plays, is that, that deep threat in that offense. It limits his PPR output.
Yeah, I do feel like DK Metcalf is the premier Madden wide receiver because he's so big, and from a video game perspective, he is unbelievable. However, last thing, Field, do you think with DK leaving that this means it's going to be a Jake Bobo breakout season?
It's interesting because I don't know how you break out when you're already the best receiver in the league. That being said, if there's a way to level up, like sometimes I watch LeBron and I'm like, how the hell is this guy getting better sometimes with age? Then yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. All right. Stephania, I got a wide receiver on the move, and I hate to do this to you, but we're going to do it, obviously.
You love doing it to me.
Going from the San Francisco 49ers to the Washington Commanders, Deebo Samuel. Let's talk about Debo. How are you feeling? Is this a first-class upgrade or a misconnection, you think, with Jaden Daniels?
So I'm going to say it's economy plus with the potential to upgrade to first class.
Do you even know what
If there's
Economy Plus is? Have you ever even ridden in Economy Plus?
Whoa. We took 2 flights, and including a connection to get here.
Tell the people.
And I sat in front of Stephania on both flights. I'm
No
just saying.
way, Mike.
I'm just saying. That's
I'm a
like,
woman of
that's
the people.
big.
These stories are very,
I feel
very
like
misleading.
I feel like I've
They
made it
fib
now.
about me
you know,
all the
I get seated ahead of the Stephania Bell. That's big for me.
That's a big deal. That's a big
and,
career
then,
moment.
and then he gloated about it.
I know.
I have to. I have to take any opportunity I can.
But we are here to answer the question about Deebo Samuel. And Deebo leaving the 49ers, look, 2024 was a relatively down season for him, averaging 8.7 yards per catch, which is the lowest he's had with the 49ers. And even with the injury to Brandon Ayuk, it was still Juwan Jennings who was the favored target there for Brock Purdy. Deebo had a couple injury issues, that is consistent with Deebo Samuel. Plays hard, plays physical. He's ultra talented, but he will miss time occasionally due to injury. However, he goes to the Commanders with Adam Peters as the GM. Adam Peters helped build the rosters in San Francisco. Adam Peters was part of the front office when Deebo was drafted 36th overall in the 2019 draft. Deebo is loved by Adam Peters, and he will be well utilized. He'll be across from Terry McLaurin. That gives Jaden Daniels more options, which is awesome if you're Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
And both Jaden and Deebo represent a threat to run. Deebo has thrown the ball before. I mean, they could come up with all kinds of trick plays. Cliff Kingsbury could have a great time coming up with all sorts of options for Deebo. So I think it could be something that turns into fantasy goodness, but he's got to stay healthy. And we just have to see how it plays out in Washington. So again, I'm sort of reserving judgment. He's a little bit older now, more mileage on the tires. But I think it was a good situation for both him and the Niners. Like, they took a 5th-round pick for him. The Commanders did not have to spend a lot of money. It helps the 49ers with their cap space. And
Gives Jaden another really nice wide receiver. I think it helps Jaden Daniels more than it helps Deebo Samuel.
right, but Deebo's happy. And I like, the Niners, they needed to shift some things around to pay some people. So I think when both parties ended up satisfied with the deal, that's good news. So again, remains to be seen. The economy plus with the potential for an upgrade.
Okay, I like it.
How many bags do you get for free in first class?
I wouldn't know. Ask Mike Clay.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm good.
All of them?
I got the good
all the bags.
seating. Is that an insult? I don't.
All right, Mike, I do want to ask you this. Another wide receiver that left, a
Yes.
little bit of an older guy, DeAndre Hopkins, going from the Chiefs to the Ravens. How are you looking at DeAndre Hopkins? First off, does he still have the kind of fantasy value where we're looking at him as a potential flex play? And is this a first-class upgrade or a misconnection?
Yeah, this is how I would qualify him. Let me know if this ever happened to you. So you get to the airport for your flight, and it gets delayed. So you're like, I'm going to go grab something to eat.
I hate this.
And
Mike is
when
telling
you come
me what
back, they're
happened
like,
to
oh
me.
no, the flight actually boarded. So you miss your flight, and you have to get on another flight, and they redirect you to another city.
Yep.
And then your flight gets delayed a few more times, and then
You spend the night in the airport.
and then you sleep at the airport, and then you have like a 6 a.m. flight, and then you're just exhausted and probably sick from your trip. Has that ever happened to anybody here?
Yes, a week ago. That just happened to me. Exactly.
that's
Mike
weird.
just
Oh.
explained my entire story.
Well, that's DeAndre Hopkins' outlook for this season.
So
I
you're
would
saying
say.
don't draft him.
I would say probably not draft him. He has name value, so someone in your league is going to take a late flyer, but he's going to Baltimore to chase a ring, and I respect it, and he's going to have a role in that offense, and he'll probably have random touchdowns here or there, maybe a 2-touchdown game like he did for the Chiefs last season. But this is a guy, you may have missed this, but during the Chiefs Super Bowl run last year, he barely played. He played like 20% of the snaps during the playoffs. He's just not a big factor anymore. And now he's going to a Baltimore offense that during Lamar Jackson's time with Baltimore, 6 seasons, that's a starter, of course, they're last in wide receiver. They're last in targets overall. Not to mention you have Zay Flowers. You have Rashad Bateman. You have Mark Andrews for now, if not him, Isaiah Likely. So I just don't think there's enough to go around for them to support him at this point in his career.
Yeah, unfortunately. Love what DeAndre Hopkins has done up until this point, but it does kind of feel like from a fantasy value, this is going to be a
He'll have a role, just not a fantasy relevant role.
Yeah, exactly. All right, before we move on to our next segment, which is going to be called Cheese Curds or Fantasy Turds, which is why you have all those wonderful paddles in front of you, I want to tell you a quick
now
story.
It all makes sense.
I want to tell you a quick story, if you don't mind. Have you guys heard, if you're from the local area, of a small city called Kaukauna? Does that sound familiar? Okay. So
It stinks.
I have, long story short, when I was 12 years old, I had a guy come to my front door.
Okay, this is
all.
We're off to a bad start.
Right.
Nope,
That's
this
a
is it.
Playing
weird,
both ways.
kind of
The
an
guy comes to
odd
your front door.
start.
Where is this going?
I went from
Questions for Mama Dopp about this.
my car.
Why do you tell this story?
It's a sign to not tell the story.
We got the Blackhawks up top. So I had a guy come to my front door, knock on it. As he saw me go from the car to the house, and he said, "My name is Jim. I'm a sculptor that does a bunch of stuff downtown. I just saw your son run from the car into the house. He's the perfect size for the kind of kid that I am looking for. Can I borrow your child?" Which is not weird at all. Not weird at all. He had done a number of sculptings downtown in my hometown, and he is from Kaukauna, Wisconsin. And so 12-year-old Daniel decided to do this, and I have a statue, full-size bronze statue of 12-year-old me in Kaukauna, Wisconsin that we went to go visit today. If you're watching the live stream today, you can see it. We went to go check it out. It was pouring rain, literally drenched. We had lightning. We had to huddle underneath all of everything, but I got to be able to go back 30 years from now. 30 years from when that happened. I was 12, I'm now 42. To go back and see 12-year-old version of me. Very cool to see something immortalized of yourself from when you're 12 years old, and very grateful for all of you people here that you have not desecrated it, knowing that I turned out to be a Lions fan, and I could imagine that you could do a number of things to that statue.
Oh, just wait, now that they know.
Tomorrow morning on local
Now
Green Bay
that they
News.
know.
But Kaukauna, obviously, it's a cheese state. It's a cheese city, right? There's a Kaukauna cheese that everyone talks about. So we thought, why not lead into that with this cheese curds or fantasy turds? So when we're going to talk about something good that we like Field Yates hair, you're going to do the cheese curds. Let's hold that up. Perfect. Thank you so much. And when we have something that we don't like Mike Clay's rankings, we're going to hold up the fantasy turds. Perfect. You guys are good at this already.
You guys are good.
Love it. All right. So
It's good. You
I'm
got it.
pumped on this. All right, here we go. Number 1, Marvin Harrison Jr. was the consensus number 1 wide receiver in the NFL draft and the number 1 fantasy rookie wide receiver that we took last year, but he absolutely did not deliver. Did any of you draft him in fantasy last year? Show of hands. Yeah, unfortunately, a bunch of us did as well. All right, so understanding that we are looking at year 2, do you believe that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be more of a cheese curd or a fantasy turd in his sophomore season? Let me see it in the crowd.
Oh,
I
it's a
think
mix.
that's pretty split, right? That's pretty split. Well, yeah, where are you guys at on this?
We get to do it.
I'm gonna
will
go.
say-
I'm gonna go cheese curd on
Yeah,
this.
I'm going to go.
Disappointing as the
Year
season
2.
was overall, he did
you holding
finish strong, cleared 90 yards in week 17, found the end zone in week 18. It's a nice springboard for 2025. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 producer at the position, but I would put him just inside my top 20 fantasy wide receivers.
I only have a turd, so these guys are all going to be turds. Hey, Saquon Barkley. Hey, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh, hey, now.
Oh,
All right. So when you look at this, Mike, trying to project.
Josh Jacobs.
There you go. Oh, the man of the people right there.
Yeah.
Projecting year 2, Mike. What are you looking at for projections for Marvin Harrison Jr.?
So I do think he'll make a leap forward this season. Obviously, the chemistry there wasn't great with Kyler Murray, but you don't draft a guy that early to not be a featured player. So his target share has to go up in year 2. They have to find creative ways to get him the football. He was one of the few wide receivers that had 0 designed screen passes last year, which makes no sense when you draft a guy that early. So I think they'll get more creative. And to Liz's point, if you look at I have another nugget for you here, as I often do. Of the 43 round 1 receivers over the last decade, Harrison ranks 14th in points per game, which is still pretty good. I mean, he scored on a per-game basis, was ahead of Devonta Smith, Drake London, Jerry Jeudy, DJ Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, Jackson Smith, and Jigba.
What have those guys become?
Exactly. I mean, that's my point. They're pretty good for you. They're pretty good. They're all cheese curds. It seemed bad because the expectations were so high, but it was fine. And there's reason to believe he's so young in a good situation. Year 2 leap makes a lot of sense. So I'm back on board.
And the one thing I want to agree with wholeheartedly, you talked about they just need to find ways to get him the football. Kyler Murray had that weird statement where it's like, it's not my job to get him the football. It's like, it's literally your job to get him the football. Like, that's what you get paid for. But you look at his targets last year, 116 targets for him. Brian Thomas, another rookie wide receiver, had 133. Brock Bowers, who's a tight end, had 163 targets. Malik Neighbors had 170 targets. 116 targets is just not going to get it done for Marvin Harrison Jr. We just need to see the ball get thrown his way more often.
That's why another reason why the season seemed bad, because all those
other guys crushed,
rookie receivers
right?
were awesome. Yeah, the position's
part of
so
that
good right now.
All right, let's talk about some sophomore slumps here. C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson. Let's start with C.J. Stroud, okay? Because this one is really difficult. There was a lot of inconsistency. He had some wide receivers that got hurt. If you're looking at C.J. Stroud now going into year 3, do you guys believe he's going to be a cheese curd or a fantasy turd? Let's see it.
Optimism
Wow,
abounds.
I know. I
Wow,
feel
a lot
bad.
of optimism.
I don't even ever like
bunch of
holding
Gators
the
up
curve.
here.
All of us,
I
all
know.
5 of us
Man,
here on the
I'm
stage.
rooting with the people up here.
Remember, it's fantasy. Remember,
You
it's
know what?
fantasy
This
here,
is
not
just
real life.
fantasy.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, because I actually think C.J. Stroud could have a better season, but it won't necessarily be a better fantasy productive season. And it all goes back to what Mike was talking about earlier with all the running quarterbacks that we have now.
Yep.
What was your great stat that you had last year where you were talking about the difference on average between a running quarterback in terms of fantasy points per week? It's something
That was probably
ridiculous.
Daniel. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not the stats guy, so I don't.
That's
I don't
highly
know,
likely.
but-
I expect
but
him
yeah,
to be
it's
like my
substantial.
computer when I just ask Siri. I'm asking Mike. Come on, just regurgitate the stat.
I'm not the stat guy. But yeah, I mean, it is a big factor for sure. I mean, he was 26th in fantasy points per game at quarterback last year. 26th. It was a big
Yeah.
drop
His
from the year
efficiency
before.
waned a whole ton, and he didn't run nearly as much either.
yeah.
And he had
Yeah.
0 rushing touchdowns, which I think inflated his production in his rookie season.
Yeah, he finished 14th or lower in 12 straight games to end the season last year. If you kept starting him after he had a couple decent
Yep.
games early in the year, he crushed you all year long. He's just not doing enough to be.
Yes.
So I've got the stat that Stephania was looking for. And maybe
good,
this is not
see?
the one that you wanted, but this is the one that I pulled that I think of. This is the list of quarterbacks with under 40 rush attempts that finished top 5 in the last 8 years. 2019, nobody. 2020, Aaron Rodgers when he threw 4,300 yards and had 48 touchdowns.
It's ridiculous.
2021, Aaron Rodgers when he had 4,100 yards and 37 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. Didn't turn the ball over. Also, Tom Brady had 5,300 yards and 43 touchdowns. 2022, nobody. 2023, nobody. 2024, nobody. If you are not running with your legs, which I guess is the only way that you can run, if you're not running the football, then you have to have an unbelievably elite season passing the ball. And we're talking about first ballot Hall of Famers with both of these two guys. I just don't think C.J. Stroud right now is in that echelon. Okay.
Fair.
I guess we're done. What about Anthony Richardson then?
Yeah,
Field, I'm going to recuse you from this one. You don't have to worry about it.
You're not allowed to vote.
So on Christian
you
McCaffrey,
think-
if you think about him from last year.
Cheese curd or fantasy turd on
man, the
Anthony
audience
Richardson?
is
Not as much
Wow.
optimism.
Okay, you know
I
what?
wanted to say shout out to
I'm gonna
Anthony's
go-
high school teachers and cousins for being in attendance tonight. The only people holding up a cheese curd.
No, I am still a believer.
Still in?
A still believer in Anthony Richardson. I don't think the book's been written on him yet. I think it's still a small sample size. If you look at the overall number of games that he's played, that he started, I think it's a small sample size. I do think he's going to improve.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of lessons last year by being big on Anthony Richardson. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It sucked going through it last season. And we can put, I think I'm a better fantasy analyst. Hopefully I will be after that lesson. I'm a better dad. I'm a better husband. I think I'm a better friend because of it. So I have no regrets. But booty cheeks, turds, you name it.
Not great.
He
I will
missed
say-
17. He missed 17 of a possible 34 games due to injury and was benched for 2 more.
And didn't we just hear, didn't GM Chris Ballard just talk about how he expects both Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson to be involved?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get both quarterbacks involved unless one of them's not playing?
You were the one that used to play both ways. So you tell us.
You know what, Field? That's a great question.
I mean, that's my concern is, like, if you're drafting your team right now,
But you're not.
you're not. But, I mean, are you drafting Anthony Richardson, who may not win the starting job?
No,
That's the
because you're
concern.
drafting after he's already won the starting job.
If he wins the job, then I feel differently. And I'd say
Yeah.
this: if I had a team
He's-
right now and I
I
was
think-
sitting here and I had C.J. Stroud on my bench as my QB2 and Richardson was on the bench, I would drop Stroud and add Richardson because you're never going to want to start Stroud. But Richardson, I mean,
a ceiling.
Richardson in his final 5 games last season averaged almost 20 points per game. So there was at least some indication that even if he's boom bust, he has some upside. He had more top 10 weeks than Stroud did last season, and he missed half the season. So
Yeah.
I still think he's finding his
he has
footing on
more
how to
fantasy
play
upside.
in the NFL, and he can move, he can run.
If he's-
he,
yeah, it's
he
what-
can score touchdowns. He can be physical in the red zone. Like, I don't think it's played out enough. I think you're seeing a young kid who's trying to figure out how to navigate the NFL. And he was injured, and there were issues with leadership, et cetera. I get all that. But if he comes back and he wins the starting job, I think he has a great chance to finally be the fantasy quarterback that we were looking for
Let him
last
figure
year.
it out on someone else's fantasy team.
Good.
Well,
Mine.
it depends what he.
That's fair.
But we're talking late round upside flyers. I mean,
Yeah.
that's probably where you're going to get him. If
Well,
there's
nobody will want to
uncertainty.
draft him anymore.
It's like Justin Fields. It's very similar. He's probably going to be in the QB1 conversation if he's starting, and that makes him more appealing than some of these pocket quarterbacks that just have no upside.
I know normally we do redraft when we're talking about these things, but Mike, just because I think Anthony Richardson is an interesting conversation, let's say that you co-manage a dynasty team with a friend of yours and you have Anthony Richardson as one of your quarterbacks. At this point, are you just like, I have no choice but to hold on to him because if I do anything, like if I sell, I'm selling at such a low value at this point. Are you just holding out hope from a dynasty perspective?
Yeah, this is our team that you're speaking of.
Yes, you and I do have
Unfortunately,
Anthony
we have Jalen
Richardson.
Hurts anchoring that team, so we're in a decent spot there.
Look at me, I'm Mike Clay. Even when I make dumbass decisions, I'm still awesome.
There's nothing awesome about that team. We have no running
Still
backs.
Jalen Hurts.
We do. That was our first pick in the draft.
It
a couple
was,
years
it
ago.
was, yeah.
And also, Dangel's on the team, so. All right, he's holding me back. All right,
Yeah, Mike drafted Jalen Hurts. I drafted Anthony Richardson, so
yeah.
it was real tough.
What-
Doesn't
I
feel
forgot the
great.
question. Oh yeah,
Just dynasty.
Yeah,
do you feel differently?
you're just holding tight unless someone's unless like Stephania wants to buy,
Right.
to sell them to Stephania.
Right. All right, I got one more
Pull that
player.
off, otherwise
Yes?
you're holding
Yeah.
tight for now.
Speaking of Stephania, what a great segue. Good transition there, Mike Clay.
why I'm the host.
Professional.
Well, don't rate me on this.
Let's talk about Christian McCaffrey because fantasy managers took him at 1.01 last year, and then they got exactly none of what they had hoped from Christian McCaffrey. Unfortunately, hurt for almost the entire season, only played 4 games, then went back on the IR basically when the fantasy playoffs was starting. My question is, fantasy turd or cheese curds for CMC coming off of that injury? Where are you guys at on this?
I want to see what the
Like a mix.
crowd
Like a cold
says.
curd?
See,
People-
I think I
there's
see more
plenty.
fantasy
I see a lot
turds.
of cheese curds over here. No, I don't think so.
A lot of turds in this corner.
There's more cheese curds on this side, a lot of fantasy turds on that side. Where are we at here on the stage? What's everyone doing?
Big time cheese curds.
Big time cheese curd?
Everyone
Everyone
positive.
a cheese curd up here? Stefania,
I'm like-
where are you at? That's what I want to know.
I'm like slow to raise my hand, but I still believe in Christian McCaffrey. It's hard because I'm biased here, right? Everybody knows I'm a Niners fan, so I want Christian McCaffrey to have big success. He has a work ethic like no other running back. The stuff he's already doing is incredible. And the reason I think you can be hopeful is because in that snow game in Buffalo where he got hurt, tore his PCL, that was when you started to see the Christian McCaffrey you thought you were getting in week 1. So he proved that he had come back from the bilateral Achilles issues and looked like the same guy, despite the fact that it was the snow. He was having an amazing game, and then unfortunately just a random injury that was due to a hit that he took. I think Christian McCaffrey will be back with a vengeance because he's that pissed off about what happened last year.
Stefania, this is a family network, please.
I will say this, and this is Mike probably has the actual numbers to back this up, but if you go back and look at Christian McCaffrey, because he's been the preseason #1 player in fantasy like 3 times, and each of those 3 times he's gotten hurt and like crashed and burned.
Yeah.
The following year, coming back from injury,
Yes.
maybe because of this motivation, maybe just because of randomness,
And
he's
also,
absolutely mashed.
He's really good.
yeah.
And
Sure
so
about that, yeah.
you can look at it this way. You can say, okay, the injuries kept him out, but that also meant he had far less exposure to all the physical contact that you take during the course of a season, which is the big knock on running backs in general.
Right.
So if you play fewer games, you actually come in more refreshed into the following season. So you can make it's one of those both sides arguments. You can't deny now that he had this particular injury. You worry about some repetition of it. He is getting older. He's certainly got more mileage on him after all the years of playing the position and playing as many snaps as he does. I do think that the 49ers will look at how they use their running back room and maybe spread things out a little bit more. But I think Christian McCaffrey is still going to be a huge threat when he's on the field. And even if Kyle Shanahan when Christian McCaffrey is playing, it's really hard to take him out of the offense. But I think that just after what they've seen, they probably would be a little bit more judicious.
Yeah, even in what was a disaster last year, when he played. He played 88% of the snaps, to be exact, in those full games that he was out there for. There's a real chance that come week 2, even or after week 1, we're going to be like, oh man, why did we not have him first overall when he plays all of the snaps and has 25 touches and scores a touchdown? So I'm factoring that into my rankings, which is why, look, he's 29. He's had a huge workload. He's obviously the injuries last season. The 49ers team isn't as dominant on paper as in years past, which is a variable here as well. But when he's active, you're going to, like, who do you want more in that running back one slot than Christian McCaffrey? Just what he does as a runner and a receiver, just never leaves the field, so good. So I'm factoring that in. That's why I think he's a back-end first-round pick still.
Well, that was Mike. You were doing so good at reading my mind right now.
Again,
my question to all of you was going to be: let's say you're on the clock. You have the last pick of the first round, 110, and Christian McCaffrey is still on the board. Are you saying I'm absolutely taking Christian McCaffrey here and leaving the first round with CMC, or do you think there's a chance that you would let it slide because there is some trepidation in your?
I love if he goes to the end of the first round because then I get another player right there. So I am happy taking him at the turn or close to it. I think that's a perfect spot.
Liz?
Yeah, I think that's right. And we also have to remember, we talked about no Deebo Samuel.
Yep.
George Kittle, there's some interesting things Shefty tweeted this morning going on there. I think they'll be resolved by August,
they'll
but
be
still
resolved.
something to keep an eye on. And Jordan Mason, now in Minnesota, so someone is being brought in to compete with Isaac Guerrero, but also just mindful of the turnover, as Mike mentioned, on this team.
Yeah. All right.
Honestly, as long as we're not playing the Packers in week 1, I'm good with taking
Good to go.
Christian McCaffrey in the
Love
first
it.
round.
Honestly, I'm at the point now where I'm done with stuff. I'm ready to do this Q&A that we're going to have, but Field, you kind of
You're right. You're
called an
definitely
audible.
Q&A.
So
Tease some-
Go time, people. Here we go. All right. So one of you folks here tonight with us in Green Bay, as we told you earlier, is going to Baha Mar. It can give their fellow fantasy football league mates the same chance if they accept hotel, airfare, meals, and all the fantasy football talk. You can physically
Sounds
stand
legit.
everything you heard us describe at the beginning of the show. So here's how we're going to do it. For the folks here on site with us in Green Bay, pick up the paddles that were on your chairs when you sat down. You got them? All right, raise them up if that's you. Where are you? Okay, we see
everyone
'em.
paddles. Let's see him. Let's everyone see him.
All right, here we go. Now, look at the bottom of the paddles. Only one of you has blue on the bottom of the handle.
Who is it?
Anybody with a
You
blue
got it.
paddle. Anybody. Blue handle
blue
on your
handle.
paddle.
Not me.
Blue handle
Who's
on
got
the
it?
paddle. Identify yourself.
Oh! Over here!
Right here in the front row.
Raise them up. Raise your hands.
Daniel!
Let's go.
Awesome!
What?
That was the most masculine thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Woo! Congratulations!
All right, buddy.
Can I bother you for your name? Brick.
Brick.
Honestly, you look jacked, so Brick is an appropriate name. Brick. Congratulations. Here's what you're going to do, Brick. You are going to go over and see Megan Judge, who is over at the back of the tent.
Right here to your right.
To your left.
Brick, she's like 8 feet over from your left. Right there. She's going to give us, you're going to provide her the info you need to get this trip. So congratulations. And a huge thanks again. Our team from Baha Mar is
Yes.
over there. Big thanks for their support of tonight's event. And, of course, for their partnership for the ESPN Fantasy Football Weekend. Brick, I got good news for you. If you need a doctor down there, I've got a guy. But you're not going to need a doctor. All right, back to the segments. Mailbag time.
All right, let's get some
Awesome.
mailbag questions here. First one that we have. Also, that was really cool. Brick.
Fun.
I got to be honest. When he jumped into my arms, he is jacked. I mean, he's.
I haven't seen someone so excited about something since last weekend when my 3-year-old found an Easter egg hunt that had one egg. It had one little Reese's egg inside of it. She thought she hit the lottery,
She did.
which I'm not going to tell her she didn't.
Absolutely.
That was great.
All right. First question says, Josh Jacobs or whatever running back Chicago drafts in the first 2 rounds. Which one are you taking in fantasy this year? Do you think the Bears are going to take a running back?
If it's Ashton Jeanty, then it's a conversation. Otherwise, it's not for me.
Yeah,
Josh
agreed.
Jacobs.
Yeah. Jacobs was awesome down the stretch last season. Just feature near the goal line, which is not something we always see from Matt LaFleur offenses either. Just ran him, and he's still at his prime. 27, I can get behind that.
Yep.
Not too old. 28 is a problem.
28 is when it starts getting up there.
27, we're
I
okay.
know. We know Mike is ageist.
That's right.
When it comes to running backs.
Works almost every time.
All right, biggest sleeper in this year's draft. Field Yates, I'm going to ask you, do you have someone, and you could probably give us 100 sleepers with all the guys you've looked at.
Jack Besh, wide receiver,
Love it.
TCU.
Love it.
He's overcome a ton. You guys have maybe heard the very sad story. He lost his brother in the New Orleans terror attack on New Year's Eve, but he's a remarkable young man, and that goes far beyond just what we've learned about him in the past handful of months, and he's an absolute stone-cold baller. You guys maybe, I don't know how big of football fans you all are, but you may be familiar with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., perhaps heard of them once or twice. They were true freshmen on the same team as Jack Besh at LSU a few years ago. Jack Besh had more catches than either of those guys did. As a matter of fact, he had more catches than anybody else on the team. He was this hybrid tight end wide receiver for LSU coming out of the gate. He's a Louisiana kid who stayed home for the beginning portion of his career. Like many kids in college, transferred to TCU. Absolute stud. So I'm hoping he hears his name called here on Friday night in round 2. And he would be a sleeper for me.
All right. Question is, Wisconsin Old Fashioned or Spotted Cow? Are those drinks? Are those restaurants?
Those drinks.
Spotted cow.
Spotted Cow's a
Spotted
drink.
cow.
I had 4 spotted cows before the show tonight. That's a lie. It's a lie.
Spotted cow.
What's in a spotted cow?
I don't know.
It's beer.
It's a beer.
Oh,
Yeah.
see? Like, okay,
local
good.
brew.
Somebody's holding it up for me. Okay, show and
you
tell.
go.
I like this.
Yeah, rather than
we can
hops,
have a
they just go to a
conversation
local-
at the bar afterwards. I'm happy to be introduced to a new beverage.
Utterly delicious.
Field Yates. That was so good. All right, we got a question from our
Stealing your
YouTube.
bit. He's
Thank you to
stealing your
you,
bit.
the 3
dad
others
joke.
that caught that joke. Thank you.
All right, question from Hugh Stone says, who is this year's Bucky Irving in the draft? Field Yates.
RJ Harvey, UCF running back, who is like 5'9", 203 pounds, which is sort of similar to Bucky Irving. Remember, the thing about Bucky coming out from Oregon was he's this small guy. How effective will he be running between the tackles? Or are they going to go full Tony Pollard back in the Cowboys days where tosses, pitches, screens, you get Tony Pollard involved, everything between the tackles, hand the ball off to Zeke. Bucky Irving showed last year that he can really handle the work between the tackles. And by the end of the season, I mean, so good that it sounds like Rachaad White might be available for the offing right now. If he gets traded, Mike's going to DM him on Instagram. If you guys don't know that joke, go back and listen to one of the podcasts from last season or the year prior. I think it's RJ Harvey, though, from UCF. Began his college career at Virginia, finished up at UCF. He is small but mighty.
Field, I have a question for you. You just rattled off those 2 scouting reports without any notes or anything. Is this your day? You're going to be on the broadcast, of course, for day 3 of the draft, Saturday, right?
Yes.
Rounds 4 through 7. You going to have any notes?
No.
You're just ready? You memorize everything?
Well, again, I started prepping last week, so it's only a week
so
to
you're good. Okay.
throw it on
All
there.
right.
No, I feel good. Ready to roll.
Can I throw one at you then? Can
Sure,
I
go for it, yeah.
I am very interested in Cam Skidaboo.
Scattaboo?
I'm very interested. Little MJD comp.
Yeah,
I
I
want to
can
know.
see that.
You and I haven't talked about this backstage or anything, but I am legitimately interested in your thoughts. I loved seeing him.
Who didn't love watching Cam Scattaboo, right? The guy was awesome. Arizona State had this remarkable run to the college football semifinals. He's super fun. He's got this unbelievable contact balance and body control. Kind of reminds me of James Conner coming out of Pitt way back in the day. Both guys ran and Cam only ran a pro day time. I think James ran a 4.65 at the combine. But Scattaboo was like 4.63, 4.67 for his 40, so definitely not going to win. He's not going to beat Jaden Reed in a foot race, that's for sure. But just a remarkable talent, despite the limitations from a speed standpoint. Became the first player in the FBS with at least 1,500 rushing yards and 500 receiving yards in a season since a certain guy named Christian McCaffrey back from Stanford, or back when he was at Stanford in the day. So I think Cam probably ends up in the 4th round.
Yeah.
There's so many good running backs in this year's class that we're going to see a little bit of a pushing down the board for the guys that aren't at the very, very top of the heap.
I think I just saw in Jordan Reed's latest mock draft, he had him going to the Bengals to pair with Chase Brown as the guy, which I thought was interesting.
I like it.
All right, this question, it says, will Jordan Love ever win a Super Bowl asking for a friend?
Yes. Probably next year in San Francisco, if you're asking me.
All right, I would love that. All right, let me ask you this then.
Oh, that would hurt.
If you had to choose right now from a fantasy perspective, you're going to take Jordan Love or Caleb Williams? That is the question on this card.
All right,
Jordan or Caleb?
I would like to preface this by saying that all the things I said earlier about Jordan Love, he was 3rd in QBR last year. He was fantastic. However, in fantasy, I think it's Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I think, he doesn't have to play as well in order to be the better fantasy quarterback because of the scheme and because he adds more with his legs. And also, again, you guys have Josh Jacobs, and they just ran the ball at the goal line last year. Jordan Love was horrific from a fantasy perspective in the final 3 months of the season last year because he didn't have to run at all and because Josh Jacobs scored all the fantasy points. So I think it's Caleb for fantasy, but in real life, clearly Jordan Love.
All right. Liz, do you want to weigh in on this? You want to stick out?
thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right. Liz
My
Loza not
turn
going to
or
answer
no?
this question.
Come on, Bears fan, help me out. No one likes me now.
I don't want to jinx anything. Not here.
Oh, wait.
Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. Great job, Field. Yes. Perfect. Totally agree with you. Yep. No, I'm with you on that one. All right. Good stuff from Field there. Two more questions. Let's do. First one is from Jake.
Sing on.
Says, who is your favorite Green Bay Packer of all time? Mine is either Jaden Reed or Christian Watson. I don't know if I love my Green Bay Packer or Mike's Green Bay Packer more, but that's one of those two.
Who was yours?
Jaden Reed or Christian Watson.
Jaden Reed?
Easy answer here. Reggie White.
That's what I was.
That's a good
yeah,
one.
I
Reggie
was going to
White?
say Reggie White. Yep.
Eagle
easily,
and a Packer.
by far.
Of course.
Yep.
Do I have to?
You don't have to.
Liz, none of them.
Liz can't.
Whichever Bear sacked Aaron Rodgers the most.
That-
You guys
okay,
still win
that's
it
fair.
all. Just let me
That's
have
fair.
this moment.
FYI, Mel Kiper calling again. He must have gotten
Look
to
at that. He's
one
got
of the
some
90
intel.
voicemails.
You should answer it. You should answer it right now. Answer it.
A hoarse voice.
Be like,
On speaker.
Mel, what's up?
Mel, it's great to hear from you, but you're on speakerphone in front of about 200 people for our fantasy football live show. So
What's-
Where I need to be right now.
that's where you're.
That's where you need to be. That's right, Mel Kiper.
Mel, I know your voice is in a bad spot. So do you want me to call you after to preserve it?
Yes.
Okay.
It's going like the hair. Yes. That's why I tell Lily. That's why I had to bow out of the media because I can hardly talk. So
Okay. Well, don't.
Give me a call when you're done, pal.
All right. Don't waste your voice on me, Mel. I'll talk to you soon.
Happy birthday, young Fieldy.
Ah, you're the best, Mel.
we love you, Mel.
We all love you, Mel. Now my day has been made. You're getting
Take
this.
care, guys.
See you, Mel.
See you, buddy. I
Alrighty.
freaking love Mel Kiper.
He's
That was awesome.
the best human of all time.
All right.
My favorite Packer is John Kuhn. Duh.
Oh, that's fair.
Thank you.
Fair.
Pretty good.
That's fair.
Good.
All right. We got one more question. It's going to come from our YouTube chat. Going to throw it up on the screen right now. Where would you draft Puka Nacua? Do you guys think he's a first-round wide receiver?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That guy's target share was ridiculous last year. He's a real deal. What a playmaker. You know he's going to get the ball in that Sean McVay offense we talked about earlier, and he's just proven to himself now 2 seasons in. And honestly, this wouldn't even be a question had he
Right.
not missed some time last year.
Well,
It wouldn't even be a question.
there was used to be the question was Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp, and that's no longer a
that's-
question.
yeah.
Puka Nacua or Dontavian Wicks. I know it's close,
Yeah,
but
Tough one.
Right, but yeah, it's Puka.
Puka
right.
as well. First round.
Yeah.
It's close. It
Easy
is close with
first-round wide
Dontavian.
receiver.
Yeah.
All right. Guys, that's going to do it for us here at Green Bay. Thank you so much for coming to hang
even
out
called
with
yet.
us.
Oh, yes.
Like we always do when we end the show, don't forget to love each other. Be kind to yourself. You deserve it. And thank you so much for hanging out with us
Thank you.
at this live show here at Lambeau Field. We love you so much. We will see you afterwards. Have fun watching the NFL draft this weekend. See you guys.
You're in the 06